Nice to have you with us on a busy Friday afternoon on this 12th day of January 2018 as we talked about the world of sports as we move along the divisional weekend in the NFL. Eddie Erickson and Colin Schmeling, yours truly here on Christopher Russo on the great SiriusXM 82 as Mad Dog Unleashed kicks off a broadcast day. Phil later, Brent later, you and I here for the duration of our afternoon as we chat to you about what's cooking as far as the world of sports is concerned. Let me just get this on the table because it's fresh in my mind. I'll go through the games here in a minute as well. I was running on the treadmill this morning with my little stupid workout with my little 100-pound weights and all those kinds of things. I hate doing it, but I forced myself at 7. So I get on there, and I didn't know anything about this. And I was watching ESPN Sports Center, and again, I don't watch any of these highlight shows in the morning. I never do. Anyway, but I treadmill right in front of me, so I had it. And I guess in the Clemson game last night against NC State. Did anybody see this? ACC in Raleigh. NC State now is coached by Kevin Keatts, who is a UNC Wilmington coach, and they hired him this year. And the coach of Clemson is Brad Brownwell, who was also at UNC Wilmington. Has been at Clemson for a long time. He's a good coach. That's a rough spot. Clemson's they pay it decently. I think he gets about $2 million a year, but it's Clemson and the ACC in basketball. That's a hard job. But regardless, they had an ACC game last night, and I'm running on a treadmill, and I didn't know anything about the game. And with 0.3 of a second to play, more than that, about 5 seconds left to go in the game, NC State was inbounding up 3. They were inbounding back at the Clemson basket, up 3. The inbounder threw the ball cross court from underneath the basket that hit the sideline. Official picked it up, so immediately called, turnover, and it was Clemson basketball, 78-75, I believe the score was. So it's Clemson basketball. It's about, whatever it might be. It's within 6-7 seconds. It's near the end of the game. Clemson works the ball around the perimeter, and they throw it to the left corner, and the kid shoots up a 3. The shortest 3 he got in the left corner, and he gets fouled. Took the official a second or two to call it. It's almost like he wanted to see where the ball ended up. He hit his arm. They call the foul, and so Clemson gets 3 free throws. All right, so Clemson's down 3, chance to tie on the road. ACC game. Clemson needs these kind of wins in the worst way. They're always on the cusp. 7-9 in the league, 8-10 in the league. 17-11 overall. That's Clemson every year. If you look at the ACC. Well, anyway, make a long story short. The kid makes the first free throw, down 2. Kid makes the second free throw, down 1. Keatts, the head coach at UNC Wilmington, formerly, who first year in the ACC, calls a timeout, 0.2 of a second left. No problem with that. That's a good, he's icing the shooter. I have no issues with that. That's gamesmanship. That's good basketball. No problem whatsoever. But in the timeout, obviously there's nothing you can tell him in a timeout. It's 0.2 of a second to go. So if he makes the shot, 0.2 of a second, he can't get a shot off in 0.2. And if he misses it, the game's over. So there's nothing, the timeout, there's no teaching or strategy discussed in a timeout, and they're sitting there. So what he does, he comes out of the huddle, and he's sitting at midcourt at the scorer's table, imploring the crowd with both hands to stand and make an absolute racket to have the kid miss the free throw. 78-77, so the Clemson obviously is in a situation there where the kid has to come out and make the one free throw. And Keatts, you're going to see it now, Colin, behind you. You can look at it on the big screen. Here's Keatts inciting the crowd. The Clemson kid goes back to the free throw line, and lo and behold, he misses his third free throw. That is such a Bush thing to do with the NC State coach and Keatts. Boy, he is on my ban list forever. What a disgrace. Now, I was shocked that Brownwell, the coach of Clemson, actually gave him a big hug after the game. Boy, that was me. I'd say, geez, really? That's what you're doing to a 19-year-old kid in that sequence? I could not believe it. I have never seen. You think Krzyzewski would ever do that? You think Krzyzewski in that situation when a kid's about to shoot a game-tying free throw with 0.2 of a second to go in a game, game, is going to go up there and is going to implore the Cameron Indoor crazies to make a racket about making this kid's free throw difficult? He'd never do that. Now, listen, they would make a racket to frenzies anyway, but he would never do that. Dean Smith, you think Bob Knight? Everybody says Bob Knight this, Bob Knight that. You think that Bob Knight would ever do that in a million years? Not a chance. Oh, God, that really bothered me. That really, really bugged me. They ended up winning the game. It was just a Bush League thing to do. Now, a lot of people might disagree with that, and I know it's crazy to begin there on a divisional weekend day. I'll go right to this divisional weekend here momentarily. But that bothered me. I mean, that's a young coach who doesn't know any better. He's 28 years old, whatever he is, who doesn't know the do's and the don'ts, and that's one you don't do. You call the timeout, I have no problem with it. Call the timeout, make him sit there, break his rhythm. That's part of basketball. No issues with that whatsoever. Now, the crowd did jump in and got rowdy. They did make a lot of noise, so he had some success doing that, but that bugged the hell out of me. Now, I don't know what NC State's conference record is. I can have Eddie look it up. I don't know what Clemson's record is right now. I can look it up. But that just, I don't know. I just felt that was completely uncalled for. And I was actually a little surprised that the Clemson coach, maybe because he knows it, maybe he's a former assistant of his when he was at Wilmington. I don't know that. But I was a little surprised they didn't have anything to say about it. I don't know if he said anything about it after the game, but that is not what you do in a situation like that. If you're, I don't have any issues of, again, timeout, no problem. That you don't do. So that bothered me today. So I kicked off my day with that mess. And then I kicked off my day, and remember, I have the Cads. I think it's like over 53, 54. I can look it up. And, the Cleveland Cavaliers, who got drilled in Minnesota the day before, and I know they get bored, and I know they almost take their cue out of LeBron sometimes, and I get that. And the last two times they played Toronto in the postseason, they have not broken a sweat, and they destroyed the Celtics last year, winning in 5 games, every game by about 100 points in TD Bank North. So I get the idea that I think they, the home court means absolutely nothing to them. So I understand that, but boy, oh boy, at 133-99. I mean, can you at least try a little bit? I mean, I understand, I said, that, you've been there, done that, and, you got bigger fish to fry and everything else, and it's a long NBA regular year and what have you, but, I mean, to go to Toronto and lose by 40 when you lost a day or so before to Minnesota by a whole bunch, and they got killed there, too. I mean, they're 11-10 on the road. I mean, that is, and that I guess Ty Lue today said we've got to get rid of our agendas, whatever that might mean, but that is and again, I don't think it means anything. They're just getting Isaiah Thomas back in the loop, but they lost badly last week in Boston. They lost a horrendous game up in Minnesota, and then last night they hit rock bottom. Really? Really now? With LeBron sitting there and Kevin Love and Crowder and Isaiah and Wade and everything else. Really? That's what you're going to do now? They didn't play they didn't play the night before. It was not a back-to-back sequence. That was a little rough. That bothered me. All right, there you go. Get it started something different. I'll come back and do the NFL for you in a sec. Here on Mad Dog Unleashed.